Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. You'll have to forgive me for being a little dirty and sweaty in this video. I've been out working in the garden all day, and I recently sent a knife out for some warranty work. So I thought I'd take a few minutes here tonight and show you some of my knives and talk a little bit about the experiences that I've had with different brands over the years, and talk a little bit about a couple of the knives that I sent out for warranty work. I've had a chance to use a lot of knives over the years, and because I don't have any links in the description to buy knives or have any affiliation with any companies or anything, I feel like I got a pretty decent unbiased opinion on different knife brands that are out there. And I am going to be critical of a couple different knife brands, and I will explain why as I get into these different brands. And to start out here is Buck. Buck is probably one of the first knives that a lot of guys had. I mean, my first real hunting knife was a Buck 119 that I got basically from a garage sale, and had to redo the edge on it because it was beat up. And I've never had a problem with a Buck fixed blade whatsoever. I've never broke one, never took a chunk out of the blades, never had any bad luck as far as the fixed blades. I've also had several folding Buck knives over the years, and this one right here is the 110 folder, probably again a knife that a lot of people have. About 15, 20 years ago, I borrowed this to a buddy of mine, and they used it to gut a deer. And I don't know how they did it, but they banged on this blade pretty good. And what had happened is the blade didn't break, but it became loose inside here. And when the knife came back to me, I was like, oh man, that's kind of banged up. And I actually got a hold of Buck. I sent it in, thought probably I'd have to pay for it because it was kind of like abuse what this knife took, but they never charged me for it. I never got charged for fixing the blade on this, and all I had to pay for was the shipping out there, which I think was pretty decent. And one knife brand here that I've never really had an issue with is Swiss Army knives, and I have several Swiss Army knives. These are both from Victorinox, but I also have a old Wagner, which was one of the brands, I guess, that was bought by Victorinox. It was also licensed to make Swiss Army knives. Never broke one, and never had a problem with a Swiss Army knife, even though they are folders, and sometimes folders can be weaker than the fixed blades. I've never broke one, never had a problem. Cold steel. Cold steel, I have never had an issue with a cold steel knife. I have 3 cold steel knives, and I have 1 machete. And this here is the Cold Steel SRK, and it's probably one of the quintessential survival knives that's out there. And I beat the heck out of this knife, and I have never had an issue with this. And these knives are between $30 and $40. And I think for the money, you're not going to beat an SRK for that kind of money. Now, there are several knife brands that I have where I only got one knife, and if I only got one knife, it's not on the brands that I got displayed here. And those are like Bark River, Rapid River, Glock knives. What else do I only have? One, Tops. Those brands I'm not going to talk about because I've only got one example of them, and if you only got one, you could have just an off one or whatnot. But these SRKs are pretty similar to those Glock knives that I handled. And then this is the SRK C, which is a smaller version of that, and I think this is a particularly good size for being on like a chest rig and kind of a defensive knife. And the same thing with a machete. I beat the heck out of that cold steel machete, and I've never had a problem with it. The next one is SOG, or SOG. And this one here is an Ace, and I actually bought this. This was like on clearance for $15, and I just bought it to throw in one of my stash buckets out in the woods. And this has actually been a really good knife. I've gutted a couple of deer and stuff with this, and never had one issue with this, never had a problem sharpening it or anything. And then this one here is a Seal Pup, and this knife actually comes from the PX on Fort Sill when we had a family member graduate boot camp down there 15, 20 years ago. He actually purchased this for me, and I've had this ever since. And this has actually been a really good outdoor knife. It's very easy to get a good edge on this for field dressing animals. Now, the first brand here that I'm going to talk about that I'm going to be a little critical on is Ontario. Ontario Knives just recently changed hands, and they're going to, I guess, be producing knives again, but it's going to be a little bit different company, I guess. But Ontario, I've had kind of mixed results with. You can see here the coating has wore off this knife. Some guys like coatings on their knives and some don't. And it's a little bit individual preference on that to a certain extent, but I have noticed that Ontario coatings will wear off compared to like an ESEE coating and that cold steel coating. The coatings wear off faster on that. And a Ontario Rat 5 was one of the only knives that I have ever broke the tang on. The tang broke on it when I first took it out of the package. I actually did a separate video on that a while back, but it really wasn't about beating up Ontario as much as it was saying you got to take your stuff out of the package and try it out to make sure that it's good for you, so you know it doesn't fail on the first couple of times you use it. Because I know people that'll buy new gear, throw it in a pack, and then they don't use it until they get out to the woods the first time. Well, if it's a really bad situation, you haven't proofed or tried your gear out. That was the point of that whole video there. And I did send that knife back to Ontario, and it took a really long time to get that knife replaced. They did replace it, which was good, but it took an absorbent long time. I mean, it probably took like 6 weeks before I really got anything back on that. And I emailed them multiple times to kind of check on the status of that, but didn't really care for that warranty experience from those guys. And this right here, better show you the whole knife here first. This is an Ontario version. I don't remember what the model is on this, but it's the Ontario version of a sort of a marine K-bar. And I'm going to show you the edge there. I don't know if you can see up against my shirt there. That edge on that knife isn't centered. It's off-centered. And again, it's just sort of a quality control thing with Ontario. So Ontario knives for me have been hit and miss over the years. So but I thought that the warranty experience that I kind of had with that Rat 5, I understand that the knife broke, but that warranty experience I thought was kind of wonky. But wanted to share that with you guys, so you guys hear that from me here. And Gerber is the next one I'm going to talk about here. This is an LMF, and this is probably my first hardcore survival knife that I had. And I have never broke a Gerber knife, and I've never broke a Gerber multi-tool. I have probably 4 of these multi-tools right here, and this is the 400 size, and then I also have the 600 size, and again, I've never broke any of them. I do have one Leatherman, but again, it's a Leatherman, and I only got one of them, so I can't really talk on that, but I've never broke or had any problems with that either. The next one is ESEE. ESEE is a really popular sort of a little bit more expensive on knife brand. I have multiple different ESEEs, and I had one problem with one ESEE, and what it was is it was a CR 2.5, which is a small knife. This is a CR 2.5 right here, and it's reminiscent of what they call a bird and trout knife. And this particular knife that I had wouldn't hold an edge. I'd use it once or twice and it'd be dull, and I thought maybe there was something wrong with the heat treat, and I sent an email to them, and they didn't. I thought was going to like send it back to them, have them try sharpen it themselves and testing it out and see if it was bad, and they never even batted an eye. They just said, send the knife back in, we'll give you a new one. And about a week later, I had this knife right here, and this one I haven't had any issue with whatsoever, and been fairly happy with it. And it's a small knife, and I like to companion those small knives with something larger, like this ESEE 6 right here. And again, you can see here, this knife's been used quite a bit too, but the coating on this hasn't wore off like it did on that Rat. And this knife has been beaten through more stuff and used harder than what that Rat 3 was that I showed you. But the coating and the quality, I feel, is a little bit better on the ESEE knives. And then this one here is another kind of coating that they have on here. This is more like a bluing that's on these knives, sort of a stonewash bluing. This is actually a PR4. It's the Kephart style, and this is actually one of my favorite knives. It's just been good. It's a great all-around blade shape. Works good for pretty much all the tasks, fairly decent to sharpen, and I don't have any issues with them. So ESEE's is one of my probably my favorite knife brands as far as the ones that I've used. Folding knives here, I have an affinity for Kershaw. Kershaw Zero Tolerance, and the brand that makes these is called KAI. And most of the knives I have are Kershaw's, and this is a Blur, and I've been carrying some variation of a Blur for a long time, and I have broken these blades, broken the tips off of them. I've had chips taken out of them. I even had one that I was doing some wonky electrical work and burned a hole in the blade. But they always repaired the knives. I never had any problem sending them in for warranty work. Now, I do have a 0 tolerance here. This was the one that just came back here. And because I use folding knives so much at work and whatnot, I wanted to try a better quality one, sort of a Cadillac. So I bought this 0 tolerance. This is a 350 model. And it's got a premium steel, an S30V, I believe is what the name of the steel is on this. And it's supposed to hold an edge really well, which it did. But I actually got a couple of times I started abusing this knife and doing stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing with it. And I took a chunk out of the blade because those premium steels, because they have better edge retention, are typically more brittle. And I took a chunk out of it. So I sent this in. And because it was sort of my own fault and abuse, I actually paid to have the knife repaired, and they charged me $40 for the blade and $7 shipping, so it cost me $47 to fix this knife. But I paid, I believe, $120 for this knife, and now these guys are like $180 or something. I don't know if I'd pay $180 now for it, but at the time I wanted one of these when they were $120. But I still don't think that that's too bad to, you know, fix a $120 knife for $47 that I pretty much broke on my own for my own abuse, I guess. But Kershaw folding knives, I've had good luck with the warranty on them, and I'm fairly satisfied with the knives. Alica out of Finland, they sell these Terava, I think it's Yarapuko, what they call these, and they're sort of similar to like a Mora Garberg and that type style knife. They're sort of a bushcraft knife, and I've used this guy here for about a year, and I haven't had any issues with this guy either. It's sort of utilitarian. The only thing on this particular knife here, I got a leather sheath with it. I don't really care for that leather sheath on it. They have some different sheath options, and leather sheaths, I think, are better for neck knives, and they're better for knives if you want to just kind of like drop it in the sheath. But if you want something that you want some decent retention, you almost want like a Kydex or something like that that holds the knife in more positively and more solid. And then I have kind of a big chopper here. This is called a Scrama, and this actually is sort of a cross, I guess, between a knife, a meat cleaver, and almost like a hatchet. And it's got a couple different grip sizes on here. These became really popular in the YouTube knife community several years ago, and I decided that I was going to get one and try it. And again, I haven't really had any issues with this knife. I haven't any problems with any chipping or any problems with edge retention or anything like that. And now here is probably the most controversial thing that I'm going to mention. Mora. And I have had really mixed results with Mora knives. I've never tried to send a Mora knife in to get fixed or anything like that because I've never really broke one. But I've had a lot of problems with edge retention on the Mora stainless steel knives. And I got 3 Mora stainless steel knives here that I want to talk about. And this is the companion here. And this knife has been used, but it hasn't really been abused. And I don't know if the camera will pick it up here. Probably not, but this knife has a fair amount of chipping in the blade, and I have just used this for basic stuff, and I find that the stainless steel Moras chip and don't have a lot of edge retention. And this here's a Cans bowl, and this is actually a nice knife for field dressing animals and cutting up fish and that kind of stuff, because it's got a thinner blade stock, so it slices really good. But again, the edge retention on this guy isn't very good. I got this guy honed up pretty good now, but you're really spending a lot of time sharpening them. And probably the one that disappointed me the most from the Mora line was the stainless Garberg. And this stainless Garberg here, I was out harvesting grapevines of all things, and to make baskets and that kind of stuff. And I didn't have this knife very long, and I had a small stick that I was using, probably about that big around, to kind of baton with it to cut the different lengths of grapevine that I needed. And I took a chip out of the edge of the blade up here, and it was a fairly noticeable chip. And I'm like, man, I'm just cutting grapevines, and grapevines are pretty soft. They got to be soft and pliable if you're going to be making baskets and stuff out of them. So it took me a couple of days out here on the workbench after work to basically work that chip out of the blade, which I did. And this is back up to kind of par here as far as sharpness and stuff. But the stainless steel Moras, I haven't had a lot of luck with. Now, on the flip side, I have a carbon Garberg and I have a carbon Bushcraft Black. The carbon Gerbers are excellent. I have never had a problem with this carbon Garberg here. And I have beat this guy probably just as much as I've beat on the SEs and the SRK and stuff. And never had a problem with this. Never had a problem with edge retention on it. Never had a problem with any type of chipping of the blade. I've used it, you can see the back there, I've used it to strike a spark on the back to start fires and stuff, and I've never had a problem with this. So I guess my advice when it comes to Mora is stick with a carbon. At least that's been my experience. But just wanted to go over some of the knives that I got here and thought it would be interesting to share my experiences with you guys and talk a little bit about the ones that I sent back for warranty and kind of my luck or unluck as you would have it. But these are just some of my knives here. Thought I'd share this information with you guys. Appreciate each and every one of you out there. Hope you guys always get a little information, a little entertainment, some things to consider as always out of my videos. You guys have a good one.